There are two types of people: those who hate Animal Collective and those who used to hate Animal Collective. If you've ever attempted to get into the experimental group, you might have heard some otherworldly sounds that either had you listening closer or turning it off completely. If you were to ask a fan about their favorite album, they'd all have a different answer for you, considering the group have released 11 studio albums, 9 EPs, 3 live albums, a visual album, along with a handful of solo albums. Simply put, listening to Animal Collective chronologically might not be the best way to dive into the madness. Luckily, 10 years ago, Animal Collective released Merriweather post-Pavilion. Sonically deep, filled with explosions of synthesizers and layers of reverberated vocals, it's filled to the brim with sounds to unpack. The album is one of the defining releases of the 2000s, often cited as the indie era's Sgt. Pepper's or Pet Sounds. Questionable claims, but they all stood as monuments in combining bold experimentation with catchy pop sensibilities for their respective generations. But while Sgt. Pepper's is one of the Beatles' more experimental albums, Post-Pavilion is one of Animal Collective's more accessible efforts. If you're looking for an entry point into the group's discography, it's your best bet. Unfortunately, the group never had an interest in returning to that album's sound since. I've made a Spotify playlist featuring songs from that album and the rest of this video. There's a link in the description below. And rather than capitalizing on the breakthrough success of Merriweather with more of the same, they turned down licensing offers and continued to embrace their oddities, leaving many to start and stop here. But there's so much to be had. In particular, Animal Collective's creative output from 2004 to 2009 was nothing short of astounding. One only comparable to that of the Fab Four? Not musically, of course. I don't think we'll see a band make as much of a cultural impact as the Beatles did. And there are artists with consistent discographies who have yet to disappoint. But hear me out. 4 amazing albums within a 5-year span, each with their own definitive sound, plus a noteworthy EP, and not to mention one of the group's members releasing a solo album credited with influencing vaporwave, released within that same period of time. I can't recall another band or artist who have come close to matching the critical attention Animal Collective held at that period. They were arguably the indie band of that decade. There was nothing else out there like them, and I doubt we'll see a band as unconventional as them break through again. All this considered, why aren't Animal Collective the great band of our time? David Portner, Noah Lennox, Brian Weitz, and Josh Gibb crossed paths throughout high school. Sharing an interest in experimental music, they aimed to create the playful imagination of a child in their music, crafting walls of sound with just about anything that could produce noise. And despite the group's alien soundscapes, their lyrical content has always been fairly human. It's their sound that many find to be challenging, requiring multiple listens to fully appreciate, even after they began embracing more poppier song structures. But believe me, the sounds they made prior to their golden era were much more eccentric. But just as beautiful. Their debut is an oddity that almost purposely turns listeners away with noise, but rewards those who stick around for the melodies to really bloom. You shouldn't pass on it, but I wouldn't blame you for putting it on hold for now. Animal Collective typically react against previous releases, always deviating to produce something new with each album. Meaning, whether or not Post-Pavilion captured your attention, another album or EP just might. Following Merriweather Post-Pavilion seemed like a near impossible task, but later that same year they released their most notable EP. Often overlooked, tracks from Fall Be Kind could very well fit in alongside Merriweather's track listing. The pop-driven songs with vocal melodies are still here, but they're slightly darker and less dense. Although if any album is going to help you transition from their glossy sounds to their more abrasive ones, it's Strawberry Jam. And I can't lift you up, my mind is tired, it's family beaches on desire, sacred night, we watch the fireworks, the frightened babies through the band usually start with a theme before constructing an album, and Strawberry Jams is right in the title. Panda Bear was eating the bright red spread and wanted the music to sound how the jam looked. We wound up with something electronic, yet organic. Their 7th album saw them further embracing the poppier approach they'd later dive completely into on Merriweather. It's not any better or worse, it solely adopts more of a guitar focus. Strawberry Jam stands out just because of how they combined their outlandish energy with some of their catchiest hooks and melodies yet, making it a great choice for newcomers. But if you want more of those airy qualities found on Fall Be Kind, then you might find Person Pitch perfect. The most notable solo release from the collective, it signaled a shift in artists crafting walls of sounds from their bedroom. Panda Bear had been working on this album in between touring and recording with the collective. When he headed to his home in Portugal to record what would become Person Pitch, his guitar was held at customs, leaving him to craft his album almost entirely with a digital sampler. Full of hypnotizing vocal melodies reminiscent of the Beach Boys, the album carries with it a feeling of optimism and pure joy. If you're looking for a sunny escape from anything, this album might help. But when it comes to raw emotion, the aptly titled Feels has their other albums beat. The warm sound of Feels can be attributed to its unconventional tuning. When initially writing songs for the record, Avitaire and geologists worked on a friend's old piano that had gone out of tune over time. That specific tuning ended up ruling over everything they did. They tuned their studio piano to match that of their friends and adjusted their other instruments accordingly. Feels boasts some of the collective's more serene sounds and most personal songwriting yet. The Purple Bottle and Banshee Beat are among some of the best Animal Collective songs written. Still holding on to the melodies we'd see in later releases, Feels beautifully layers traditional pop songs with weird sounds to create a collection of folk-inspired lullabies. The same way a child can be a joy at times and an uncontrollable terror at others, Animal Collective always seem to bring together things in their music usually kept separate. Sometimes I can't find my good habits. Song Tongs can be weird but pleasant, noisy yet pretty. The album saw the group deliver some of their most digestible songs up to this point, showcasing Animal Collective's progression from an exciting experimental act to a band capable of brilliant and innovative songwriting. The same 4 members have interchangeably worked on albums, but the group's lineup has never been concrete. Sung Tongs marked the first time since their debut that only 2 members worked on an album. Primary songwriters Avitaire and Panda Bear kept things fairly minimal with acoustic guitars, live percussion, and vocals. If you make it here, you're ready to venture into the rest of their discography. What really makes these albums special are their longevity. It's amazing to look at them in retrospect. They were consistent but all covered vastly different soundscapes, and none of them feel dated because of it. It's why arguments over the best Animal Collective album are amusing to this day. Over 2 decades, they've shaped and followed trends but have remained unmistakably Animal Collective. They're a band that you have to revisit if things don't click on the first listen. It could explain why they aren't considered the great band of our time. So many listeners are quick to excuse music that doesn't immediately capture their attention. I do it too, and then listen again years later and that artist or band becomes one of my favorites for a short while. You're either one of 2 people, those who hate Animal Collective or those who used to hate Animal Collective. Which are you? But then there are those who loved Animal Collective on first listen, so maybe there's 3 people. Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Thank you, ladies and gents, for watching and for the continued support for my patrons. For as low as $1 per video, my patrons keep this channel going, and I reward them with commentaries of past videos, their name in the credits, and more. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like rating, subscribe to learn more about the music you love, or soon might. This video was pretty much me learning After Effects, and I thought if there was any video to get experimental with, it was Animal Collective. I watched Ron Lauders learn Adobe After Effects in 2 hours, and learned it in 4. Just playing in the program was half the fun and half the reason this video took so long. But here it is. Once you know the basics, you just kind of have to have an idea of what you want to do. And there are a ton of classes on Skillshare that'll teach you how to make a video exactly like this. And there are so many more tutorials on things I'll definitely be trying out in future videos. A subscription starts at about $10 a month, but thanks to Skillshare, the first 500 of my viewers to use the link in the description will get 2 months of Skillshare Premium free, giving you complete access to every class with just enough time to learn something new. Animal Collective have a pretty great year ahead of them. Panda Bear just released a solo album earlier this year, and we have AV Terror coming out with a new LP very soon. And now there's confirmation that all members of the collective are plotting a studio return or some sort of return. But tell me, what are your thoughts on Animal Collective? Love them? Hate them? Let me know in the comments below. And that's it for me. Again, thanks for watching, and keep listening.